Hello and welcome back, and that is right. Today we want to talk about this. This is the Flint 3 from Gl.i. Do you remember those guys? We spoke about them a wee while ago when we were talking about this. This is the Slate 7 travel router there. Now this is a desktop router. It's designed for your home or office, just like that one from your ISP that's in a cupboard somewhere gathering dust. And in this video, it would be very easy to talk about Wi-Fi 7. It'd be very easy to talk about all the benefits, but we covered that a lot before. And indeed, this is a great example of a Wi-Fi 7 router. So I thought, let's cut to the quick and do one of our before you buys. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why the Flint 3 is a great router, but I'm also going to give you 5 reasons why you might want to look elsewhere, or maybe even stick with your ISP, at least for the time being. Let's crack on with number 1. This is a weird one to be starting off with, but frankly, I think it's one of the most appealing things about not just this, but a number of different Gl.iNet routers, and that is so much failover. When it comes to most router devices, failover is considered business. It's considered, I wouldn't say home lab per se, but I would say internet failover is for when disconnection from the internet is critical and devastating, and therefore failover is generally considered a business level point. But this knocking around at sub $200, and by sub $200 I mean at one point this thing was as cheap as like $130, $150 during the early backing of this device from their website, pre-early backing orders. I'll say right now the amount of failover coming out of this is insane. So notwithstanding the fact that you got your LAN there on the your WAN there on the rear, which by the way is 2.5 gig, but you can have dual WANs. Okay, so you've got 2 internet connections going in. Who has that? But never mind, you've got that option, both of which can be 2.5 gig. So you got that failover, but it doesn't stop there, because what you can do is grab a little Wi-Fi dongle. You can get one, stick a SIM card in it, stick it inside a USB, bang. You've now got another failover. And that means if one of these internet connections dies, you've still got 2 others to fall back on. But that USB can also be used for a phone, for tethering. So you can have tethered internet. So if you've got an old SIM router knocking around, or just a SIM card going into one of those little USB $10 ones, you can connect that to this and you've got another failover. It's also got support of Wi-Fi repeating, which can be used as a failover. This device has numerous methodologies in place that if you lose one internet connection, you can have 2 or maybe even 3, depending on the setup, of failover options ready to continue your internet connection straight away, which again, even if you're not a business, it's still quite nice to have that during downtime from your ISP. Now, I touched on that earlier, but there on the rear, we have got 2.5 gig, but we got 2.5 gig coming out of the wazoo. Every single one of those connections is 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. And again, one of these you can set as a dedicated, you can have the dedicated WAN, and you can have a WAN LAN failover for one of those. But still, that is a potential 10 gigabit of connectivity shared out between those 4 devices there, which once again, you look at the price between $150 and $200 for a Wi-Fi 7 router, which by the way supports up to 9.6 gigabit in terms of wireless connectivity. It's good to know you've got that outside and on the LAN. Now, chances are, if you're watching this on YouTube, particularly on a desktop computer, look just on the side of the screen there, and you'll see a video from Radal, where he turned these devices from Gl.iNet into a NAS. It's fantastic stuff, and do you know what? He's absolutely bang on, because the software feature set of this is incredible compared to most other routers at this price point. Now, most Wi-Fi 7 routers at this price point in the market have very restrictive software. They either arrive with, if you look at your Asus's and your Netgears, have very restrained software that although you can configure it over SSH, generally, once you reach that level anyway, you're already looking at an enterprise product. This, on the other hand, it's open source software allows you to not only use this as a NAS, but use this in a myriad of different ways, from a containerized application center to support of third-party operating systems that you can just bang straight on there. There's even a more technical back end if you want it, but the baseline software itself is very multi-featured. It's not for everyone, something we'll touch on later on. But the quad-core ARM processor in this, 1 gig of DDR4 memory and 8 gig of eMMC storage allows for a decent amount of capability. So you could use this again for numerous containerization and smart home applications. Use it for multimedia streaming there. Use it for centralized management of something bigger. Ultimately, for its price point, the capabilities and flexibility of this are unparalleled at this price. This next point you can probably apply to actually quite a lot of Wi-Fi 7 routers. But I will say, again, I know I keep bringing the price point in, but for what you're getting for this price, it's not bad. So in terms of wireless connectivity, you have got that 9.3 gigabit per second connectivity there across multiple bands. You've got a 2.4, a 5 gigahertz and a 6 gigahertz band, something that 6 gigahertz that was actually missing from their other Wi-Fi 7 effort recently. Now with that, again, support of things like MLO allow you to connect to this device via multiple bands simultaneously. Obviously, you're going to need a Wi-Fi 7 device that can connect to those multiple bands at the same time, but at the very least, it allows for shared bandwidth space, allowing for greater bandwidth connectivity than Wi-Fi 6. The result is that with a simple Wi-Fi USB dongle for Wi-Fi 7, then this thing is so cheap, around vaguely the $20 mark. This allows me to connect this device up to 2.8 gigabit wirelessly. Obviously, proximity is a matter there, but still, it's really useful to have. The way this device approaches the support of MLO, multi-link output, is it has its own MLO dedicated channel. So whereas in some routers you've got the different Wi-Fi channels running there and the frequencies and you create your SSIDs, this allows you to create that dedicated MLO access point there, which is an unusual way to do it, but actually kind of makes sense after a while when you want to make sure that you are connecting to the most expansive frequency band and SSID all in one in the most simplified fashion. I really like that. They're not the only ones to do it, but it's still at the same time, I'm glad that they did. This is something, genuinely, I don't think Gl.iNet get enough credit for, at least on this device. In my previous review, when I talked about the Slate 7 portable device, either it wasn't available or I didn't spot it, and that is that this device has got support of Bark Home Edition parental control. Now this arrives with it already good to go. You can install it and deploy it as needed. You won't be able to take advantage of hardware acceleration internally to speed up packet management at the same time, but not everyone's going to use that. But the parental controls themselves, for a router at this price, and I'm sorry to keep saying that, but at this price, a license-free parental control is phenomenal. Notwithstanding that normal budget parental controls give you such lofty ideas as blacklist a website, blacklist a device, that's it. This, on the other hand, allows me to create profiles for individual users, profiles with devices locked by MAC address. It allows me to lock them to not only whitelist, blacklist conformity, but it also allows me to set up work time. It allows me to set up playtime rules for when certain websites can and cannot be accessed by certain devices, scheduled access patterns to certain Wi-Fi connections. The sort of thing, by the way, that Synology's routers are genuinely purchased for above all else, and they have premium routers for a while. This, on the other hand, is a premium device at a lower price with access to that level of parental control that genuinely, at this price and at this hardware profile, is sodding impossible to find. Oh, and don't even get me started on just how many VPNs this thing supports. It's kind of bonkers how flexible this is in terms of security. But it's not for everyone. Let's talk about 5 reasons why you might want to give this a miss. The fact that this doesn't feature a 10 gig port is going to annoy some users. It doesn't actually annoy me because Again, that's not what I'm seeing this as designed for at that price and hardware profile. But I do know there are going to be users looking at the current range of Wi-Fi 7 routers in the market right now. And whether it is you're looking at, say, Unify routers there, or you're looking at more, flexible deployed routers across the market there, the fact that this doesn't have 10 gig will make it stand up weaker in terms of external bandwidth compared to those options. Now, the reason I'm happy with it is because I wouldn't choose to use this in that kind of environment. But yes, there's 2.5 gig for incoming internet traffic, but if you're using a NAS in a local area network that your users are going to get to enjoy, you're not going to be able to enjoy a 10 gig connection on the rear there. And again, there are Wi-Fi 7 routers in the market with a similar hardware profile to this, a little bit more expensive, mind, that have 10G. So if you're looking for 10 gig on your Wi-Fi 7 router to enjoy some of the larger benefits of MLO and Wi-Fi 7, this might not be the one for you. Now, again, this is going to be a negative that I know is going to annoy some users, and I'm sorry if that's the case. But to caveat real early doors, I actually genuinely like the design of this router. It is light, but feels solid. These are some of the best antennae in terms of rigidity. There's, they stay exactly where they are. I'm shaking it around, they aren't moving. There's up to 190 degrees of motion there from top to bottom. If you wall mount it, fantastic. If you desk mount it, fantastic. So what is my problem? Well, nice and simple. When you have more rigid, solid router antennae like this, it means you miss out on some of the flexibility that other routers can provide. Now, what do I mean by that? This is a Gl.iNet router here. It's the Gl.AX. And again, I can move them up. I can move these antennae. But more importantly, I have a greater deal of control about manipulating this movement here. And although this does give rise to the potential for the antennae being perhaps a little loosey-goosey, it does give me more flexibility in how these antennae can be arranged. I can still take advantage of the flat arrangement that this one gives me, but at the same time, the brand clearly has routers that have more flexibility in antenna placement, which, although won't give a huge amount of advantage in terms of bandwidth being shared by users, if this is being deployed in more closed environments and you need better coverage and circumference in above and beyond the 180 degrees top and bottom, it's something that this doesn't provide. These are still great and well-designed antennae there, but it's just be aware that with that rigidity and with that solid nature comes an element of inflexibility available from other solutions. Do you remember how chuffed I was about how much failover device this had? How great you could use it as a NAS with Samba and WebDAV support? Do you remember I was talking about all the little bells and whistles you can do on this? There's only one USB port. One. Now, yes, I could maybe put a splitter in there. Again, I am putting all my eggs in one basket there. If I was going to use that for storage and a failover, I'm going to have to think about power delivery there, of course. But the fact this only has one USB is just a little disappointing there, given the huge amount of capability that this router can provide. Now, this was a criticism I brought to previous generation routers from the brand. A criticism, by the way, that I half leveled at this Gl as well, but the Gl at least has an SD card slot as well. And when you look at the Slate has got USB power delivery, but it only has the one port. So this is something not new to GLI routers. Ultimately, what I'm saying is I really like the flexibility of what I can do with that USB. I'm just annoyed there's only one. Now, hear me out on this next one. It's going to sound a lot more negative than I mean it to. For a start, the software on this is so multi-featured. I love it. It does so much. It is able to do absolutely loads, and the customization is something that very few other routers provide in the market. So what is my criticism? It's inconsistent at times. For all of the large feature set, the design and philosophy on the software is a little bit give and take. It's a little bit too complicated for a complete novice or an amateur, and it's a little bit too restrictive at points for an experienced home lover or high-end network enthusiast. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, there are some elements of the design where you have graphical displays there, you've got full walkthrough of exactly what's happening, customizable clickable buttons for what you need to do, it's all there with helpful guides and tips dotted all around. And at other points, there is no guidance. There are other points, something will not load because it is purely numerical IP-based entry or just figure-based entry, and if you don't know what you're doing, there isn't a huge amount of guidance to help you be able to do it. I mentioned earlier, there is a lovely way to go into the more technical command line backend, and that's fantastic. But the point is, the software is trying to be so many things. It could really do with a much more concise beginner and expert doorway. It kind of already has that, but it's not successful enough in my eye. Going back to that MLO support there, being able to give that one doorway to be able to engage with MLO via the actual specific SSID you create, that's turned off by default. Quite strange. Likewise, I've got the option to change everything from packet management and radio frequencies for individual Wi-Fi connections. I could even set them down to scheduled on and off to create an air gap, which is lovely stuff there. But there isn't anything to get the system to automatically scan for the most ideal network setup there. Something that the likes of Unify have had for a very long time in terms of optimization, and something that I have seen possible on OpenWRT routers. Now, again, you're probably going to be fine with most of this, but before you buy this router, the point I'm making is take a bit of time to look into the software first and just make sure it's a good fit for you and your skill level. And again, going back to that radar video, the fact this doesn't have support of VLANs on board as well, particularly when you've got 4 2.5 gig LAN ports there to play with, which could easily spin off into their own subnetworks easily, eliminating the need for a larger switch built in rather than lots of little pocket areas, is going to be disappointing for some of you. At this point, I feel like all I'm doing is pissing people off in the comments with some of my negatives, but I'm going to go with this one as well, because I was disappointed to hear this, and some of you might think this. When the Flint 3 was rolled out, it was rolled out and unveiled a similar time to that of the Slate 7. And one of the things I was really looking forward to was that, given that this has got a repeater functionality, given that it has a bunch of failover, I was really excited to know that I could integrate this into my existing Gl.i network, because what I wanted to be able to do was to be able to mesh node these puppies. What I liked the idea of was to have this currently set up as a primary access point, and then have this as a node in my office, and then when I need to go, take it away and use either one of these two. Unfortunately, this can't be meshed with those. And again, it's a very unique setup there. But given Gl.i's incredible prominence in the world of mobile routers, it's a bummer to me that when they do have a desktop Wi-Fi 7 device and roll out a Wi-Fi 7 router device, that I can't mesh node them together to give myself the convenience that I enjoy with the Puli, which is that I have this set up, and then when I need to go on the road, I just disconnect it from the wall and its internal battery and take it with me. It kills me that that flexibility potential that could have existed here didn't get realised. But there you go. That is the before you buy for the Gl.i Flint 3. I'll link to those 2 radar videos that I talked about, because honestly, they really do help you make the most of these devices. And rather than ape them, they're just great to watch. So I recommend you check those out. But if you have found this helpful and you're not too annoyed at me in the comments, then do let me know. And otherwise, if you want to get hold of one of these devices yourself, I'll link to it in the description below. So if you found the video helpful, and if you're going to go to those stores anyway, please use those links. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.